Hi, this is Arik Goel, creator of the Goel Method and manual ligament therapy. Does bad posture create pain and dysfunction in your body? It's a good question, right? Well, we're going to see if we can answer that today. A very common question I get asked in my practice is whether or not bad posture has a connection to pain and dysfunction. It's not really a clear yes or no type of answer, but I am going to try to explain to you a couple misconceptions about what creates bad posture or good posture, and also some ideas about why our body takes the shape that it does. Let's start with the first misconception, and that is that posture is genetic. A lot of people say, well, I look like this because my dad looks like this, and my grandma looked like that, and my brothers look like this, and my sisters and uncles look like that. The reality is that posture is not genetic. When it comes to your family, it's learned. From the time we're babies and throughout our developing years, we're looking for examples of how to stand, how to move, how to interact with our environment. So if we are constantly seeing somebody that has what we consider bad posture, which would be, say, something like a hunched back or a lot of curve on their lower back, we are going to emulate that in an attempt to create our own movement patterns. Our posture is created by experience from the time we're children. The other misconception is that bad posture is created by a misalignment of your spine, that it's the fault of your bones that are creating bad posture. That's not quite correct either. Your bones don't move on their own. They're not a type of tissue that can mobilize itself. Your bones are moved around or supported by your soft tissues, your contractile tissues, like your muscles, your connective tissues, your skin, etc. So your bones are not going to get up and do their own thing. They're going to be influenced by the tissues that surround them. So by focusing, trying to change your posture on correcting the position of your bones, you're not going to get very far. It's more of a retraining of your nervous system and your patterns of movement and how you support yourself. And how you support yourself, I'm talking about how you use the muscles in your body to keep yourself upright. Because the next thing we're going to talk about is gravity and how much it influences our posture. How does gravity influence your posture? Well, the reality is that standing on two legs is not very easy. Our body goes through a lot just to keep us from falling down. And we're going to begin talking about this example with a look at what our eyes are doing. So when we use our eyes to fixate on things, it draws our attention. We see something, we want to look at it, our head is naturally going to follow that. And that can be in day-to-day living, it can be when you're on the computer, on your cell phone, or just looking around. The problem arises when, as our eyes are fixating and our head goes forward, the gravitational pull on our head increases the more it gets out in front of us. As you'll see in the next part of the video, there is a plumb line, an axis that our body needs to be in order to efficiently support itself against the pull of gravity. But once our head gets out in front of us, all of that changes. As our head gets out in front of us, the body begins to strain to keep the head up. Because as our head goes forward, it's going to tend to start to drift downward. But it's very important to our nervous system to be vigilant of things. So it's very important to the body that our eyes remain up. Our nose is here in front of us. We can hear things. We can communicate with our mouths. So keeping the head upright becomes a huge task, especially as the head goes forward and gets heavier and heavier with the stress of gravity. And that creates a lot of strain on the muscles on the back side of us, from the top of our head all the way down our back, down the backs of our legs, down toward the bottom of our feet. Plantar fasciitis, for instance, is a reflection of what's happening with our head placement. And we'll get into that in another video specifically about plantar fasciitis. Another huge factor that dictates our posture, whether it's good or bad, is our nervous system and our emotional response to things. Now, if you haven't seen my video yet that pertains to stress and the nervous system and chronic pain, you might want to hit pause on this one and go watch that first. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a quick recap on what that video includes. And part of what that video includes is a discussion about how when we have this fight or flight response, when there's an emotional or painful situation going on, our body wants to curl up to protect itself. And it does this by contracting very strongly in the front, especially in the abdomen, because it's extremely vulnerable. So this contraction in the abdomen curls our body downward. And unfortunately, if you combine that with the fact that our eyes are fixating on things and our head is following, that's going to pull our head even further in front of our body, which is going to increase the stress on the back of our body. A good example is if you've seen an older person on the street, or if you know someone in your life that is basically bent over and they have to walk with a cane, and they seem like they can barely keep themselves upright, you might think that, okay, that's scoliosis, that's osteoporosis, that's a spinal condition. But the reality is that if you got to know that person, they've probably had a very difficult time. They've probably had a lot of very stressful experiences. And that stress contraction is reflected in their body. Their abdomen is extremely contracted, pulling the body forward. And as they age, and then if they're not doing anything to correct this contraction in the front of their body, it's going to continue to pull them forward, and it's going to continue to be more and more difficult to bring themselves upright. So what you get in the end is this person who seems like they're almost bent in half. But again, that's not because their spine decided to do that, it's because their body is reflecting what they've been through in their life. It's so important that we get rid of this contraction in the front of our body, especially in the stomach, in the chest, in the fronts of our legs, our hip flexors. If you're doing a lot of exercises trying to correct your bad posture, things like using rubber bands to strengthen your upper back and between the muscles between your scapulas, doing things like wall angels to try to strengthen the muscles along your spine to make you stand more upright, you're going to have limited results, because if you don't clear this contraction in the front of your stomach or in the front of your body, especially here in the stomach, you're not going to get the results you want for getting your body upright. The battle between the front and the back will continue no matter how strong you try to make the back side of you. In this next part of the video, we're going to go through posture and the different points of our body that reflect different elements of posture, and I'm going to teach you how to start correcting things. So let's do that right now. I'm going to begin with a demonstration on bad posture. And this is going to be the classic head forward posture that we see quite a bit. I'm going to exaggerate here, but we know this is somewhat realistic because we've all seen people who look like this. Creates a lot of strain and stress for the whole body from head to toe, and it's very uncomfortable. And now we're going to show you how to correct it. So first, we're going to stand with our feet about shoulder width apart, and most of our body weight should be in our heels, not in our toes. Our knees should be relaxed. They should be soft. They shouldn't be locked, and they shouldn't be bent. Just relaxed. Now we're going to move up to the pelvis, which is the most important part. Here I'm demonstrating what you don't want, and that is anterior and posterior tilt to the pelvis. You want to be neutral, which is right about here. The pelvis is very important because it's like a natural anti-gravity unit for the body. It supports our weight, it supports our movements, it gives us everything we need to stay stable or mobile. In order to activate your pelvis correctly, I want you to pretend like you have to go number 1 and number 2 at the same time. But you're at the movies and there's about 20 minutes left and you don't want to get up and leave yet. It's not urgent that you go, but you definitely feel it. So I want you to kind of pull up with about 20% of your strength. What this does is it sets a foundation in our pelvic muscles, which will help support the rest of the body. And that's what we're going to do next. On to the upper half of the body. Again, I'm demonstrating the anterior and posterior tilt of the pelvis, which we don't want. We're going to set ourselves at the neutral point and activate our pelvic muscles from inside. I want you to make sure that you're breathing from the diaphragm. Your diaphragm is not only a breathing muscle, it's a postural muscle. Try not to focus your breathing in your chest. Let it be relaxed. From there, I want you to imagine that something is gently pulling you up. In this case, I'm going to imagine I'm standing in the water, and the water is slowly starting to rise. And in order to keep it away from my mouth and my nose, I want to project my body up and away from it. That means I'm not going to look up, I'm not going to bend backwards, but I'm going to think up, which is strange in the beginning, but you will get used to it. A point about our rectus abdominis, or six-pack muscle. A lot of us think that its main action is to flex us forward. It's not the main action of that muscle. What it primarily does is it compresses and it lifts up our torso when it combines with other muscles around our waist. When you think up, when you move your body up, the rectus abdominis does that motion. Also, it's not important to squeeze your shoulder blades back, so don't worry about that.
Now that you have a much better idea of what creates bad posture and how to correct it, you might be wondering if there are certain exercises you should avoid or ones that you should be doing. The exercises that I would avoid are exercises that overly strengthen your abdominal area, like crunches and planks, or exercises that focus on your quadriceps and hip flexors, the muscles in the fronts of your legs, especially if you don't know how to stretch those areas. Because as you know now, those contractions in the front of our body include those muscle groups, and if you're already contracted there and you're doing those exercises, you're just reinforcing that contraction and pulling your body more and more forward. The exercises I do recommend are swimming and jump roping. These are great exercises to strengthen the deep muscles inside your body, and if you apply the postural techniques that we talked about in this video to swimming and jump roping, you'll have great results. If you haven't already, I really encourage you to watch the other videos I've created about stretching the front of your body as well as working on the tight areas in your abdomen. The big idea is to create balance between the front of your body and the back of the body so there's not this constant fighting going on back and forth. If you apply the things that you learned in this video and the things that are in my other videos, you're going to have a great result in correcting your bad posture and giving your body a better way to support itself against gravity. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you found it informative. Again, my name is Arik Goel. I'm the creator of the Goel Method and Manual Ligament Therapy. Thanks for watching and take care.